Rome. A hot day. In the Forum, where they usually argue about laws and wars, today they're talking about one woman. She's from a good family, the wife of a respected man. All her life, she lived the right way. But one story, one man, one affair, and now her name is spoken in whispers, like a dirty secret. She's been stripped of her dowry, thrown out of the house, forbidden to appear where she once sat in the seats of honor. She has become a living warning. Don't you dare. At the same time, her husband goes to brothels, sleeps with slave women, cracks jokes about his adventures at banquets. Everyone knows, everyone sees. And the worst he'll get in return is some biting jokes from moralists. No laws, no exile, no stigma. In the same city lives a girl. If she is abused, the first thing they will ask is not, who did this? But where was she? How was she dressed? Why did she go alone? Nearby, a man who beats his wife. That's a family matter. Nearby, a father who decides whether to let his newborn daughter live. That's his right. Welcome to ancient Rome, the civilization of laws, forums, orators, geniuses, and monstrous double standards. In this video, we'll tear apart the pretty picture of antiquity. You'll see how in the very same city, under the very same laws, for the very same actions, a woman could be destroyed, a man patted on the shoulder, a girl child not even counted as a full human being. We'll break down why a woman's infidelity was a crime, while a man's was often the norm. How modesty and honor were demanded only from women, while men were allowed to do almost anything. What a Roman woman could be cast out, executed, even buried alive for. And how a man in the same situation could be acquitted. How control over the female body and freedom was written into the empire's laws. And where, in all this, the very attitudes were born that still live on in people's minds today. Watch to the end. At some point you'll realize Rome supposedly died 2,000 years ago, yet its double standards still live right next to us. Let's start with the most painful point. How Rome saw adultery. We've already broken this down in a separate video, but now we'll look more broadly. How the double standards are visible here. A married man in Rome could go to prostitutes, have sexual relations with slave women, take lovers of low status, even live in parallel with a concubine. Society could condemn this in words, but the law, most of the time, stayed silent. Why? Because the Romans didn't think in terms of love, betrayal, but in terms of purity of inheritance, property, family honor. If a man cheats, but the wife remains sealed, and the children born from her are recognized as his, the system doesn't seem to suffer. If the wife cheats, everything collapses. A child of uncertain origin may appear. That child will be considered a legal heir. Foreign blood enters the family line. Property, offices, and status may pass to people they shouldn't. From this comes the main principle. A man has an affair. Well, it happens. A woman has an affair. A crime against the family and the state. In the early empire, Emperor Augustus turned this into explicit law. Female adultery became a legal crime. A husband who caught his wife with a lover was required to react. Bring a case to court, divorce her, not forgive quietly. If he turned a blind eye, he himself could be accused of condoning debauchery. What did the woman face? Divorce, loss of her dowry, partial confiscation of her property in favor of the state, exile, a lifelong stigma. What did the man face for his many affairs? Nothing, as long as he didn't touch the wives of other respected citizens or sacred figures like the Vestal Virgins. One and the same act, a sexual relationship outside marriage. The woman, a criminal. The man, at worst, a womanizer. There's your first clear Roman binary code. Format. Now, another harsh double standard, who was even considered a full person from the moment of birth. A Roman father had legal power over his children. Patria potestas. If he decided, you live. If he decided, you are exposed. Yes, not every father was a monster. Yes, far from every baby girl was abandoned. But the very idea, a newborn child, especially a girl, especially if the family was poor or already had daughters, could simply not be accepted. This was called exposure. Formally, the father could order the baby to be taken away and left on the street, at a shrine, on a trash heap, hope that someone would pick it up, or know that no one would. Boys were more often picked up as future slaves or workers. a baby girl could be considered a burden, and the law did not label this infant killing in the same way it labeled killing an adult free citizen. Her life, from the very first minutes, is valued less than the life of an adult man or even a boy. She is expendable to the system. If she survives, the rest of her life passes under the sign of, "You are less than he is. Your rights come after his. You are the object of decisions." From the very beginning to the very end. The next double standard is in the very nature of marriage. A boy grows up into a future citizen, soldier, politician. A girl grows up into a future wife, mother, and tool of alliances between families. A young man can marry later, once he's established, at least partially take part in choosing. Sometimes live without marrying at all. If his parents are rich, there are slave women, or there are heirs by other lines. A girl is married off early, 12, 13, 14, and they're already discussing her wedding. Her life is cut down to the size of her dowry and political usefulness. The decision is made by men, her father, guardian, future husband, his relatives. Her opinion? They might ask for form's sake, but if she's against it, that's a caprice, not an argument. She is an element of a deal. They give land, money, cattle, property for her. Her marriage is a bridge between families that men build. A young man can refuse, run up debts, go on a spree, take his time. A girl who refuses to marry is a risk. The family may lose a profitable alliance. Questions may arise about her normality. The traditional order may be disturbed. The double standard is obvious. He is allowed to develop. She is allowed to be useful. In marriage, this asymmetry becomes a system of rules. The husband is head of the family, can dispose of property, decides where they live, with whom they socialize, can often beat his wife within reason, and that's a family matter, not a matter for the courts. The wife must be modest, must be faithful, must bear children, must not air dirty laundry in public. If the husband drinks, cheats, humiliates her, squanders money, disgraces himself at banquets, this may provoke whispering, but the wife does not automatically gain the right to leave, to take the children, or to take the property. If the wife disgraces the household by a look, a word, an affair, her clothing, she becomes a problem to be removed. The Romans calmly explained this by saying things like, the husband is the head, the wife is the body. But in practice, it was legalized, normalized, unequal responsibility. The woman is held primarily responsible for the well-being of the marriage by her silence and obedience. The man can behave destructively as long as he doesn't cross the boundaries of other men and the interests of the state. One of the most terrifying manifestations of double standards is the attitude to violence. Imagine a young slave woman, or a simple free girl of low status. A man touches her, coerces her, uses her. She has almost no tools for protection. If she is a slave, her body is not considered hers at all. Her owner has the right to sleep with her, loan her out to others, punish her if she resists. If someone else spoils her without the owner's permission, this is a crime, first of all, against the owner's property, not against her. If she is free but poor, her chances of getting justice against a rich or noble man are tiny. Now another case. A free, respectable married woman is harassed, stalked, assaulted. If violence does happen, the law can, formally, be on her side. But in practice, she will be questioned like a criminal. They'll look for whether she provoked it. They'll ask where she was, what she was wearing, who she was with. This shifting of blame, we didn't invent it. It already existed in Rome. Men could explain among themselves. It's her fault. She shouldn't have been there. What did she expect, talking to those men? A decent woman doesn't go out alone at night. The man who uses violence remains someone who gave in to passion, couldn't hold back. It's described as an exception, a flare-up. The woman who became a victim is easily turned into the one who failed to protect herself. Her behavior is examined under a magnifying glass. His is excused by nature, impulse, wine. This is exactly the monstrous double standard that stretches into our own time. Towards the man, he gave in. Towards the woman, why did you let it happen? The most extreme, symbolic case is the stories of the Vestal virgins. The Vestals were priestesses of the goddess Vesta, guardian of the city's sacred fire. They took a vow of chastity for many years. If a Vestal broke this vow and had relations with a man, it was seen as a crime not only against moral norms, but against all of Rome. The city believed the gods might punish everyone for it. How were they punished? The Vestal was buried alive. They dug an underground chamber for her, put some food and water inside. A hypocritical gesture. We're not killing her directly. We're leaving her to the gods' judgment. She was lowered down. The entrance was walled up, covered with earth. She died in darkness from hunger, thirst, loneliness. The man who was her lover was also punished brutally. He might be beaten to death in public. It might seem that here, both are punished. So where is the double standard? In the fact that female sexuality in this story is treated as the main source of danger. It is her body that becomes the battlefield of gods and city. The response is the symbolic burial of what the woman represents. Violated purity. The man remains a figure who tempted, sinned, disobeyed. The woman is the figure through whom the cosmos collapses. The punishment for both is cruel, but the social meaning falls primarily on the female image. If a woman is not under control, everything will fall apart. Another powerful double standard is in who had a voice in society at all. A male citizen can vote, can hold office, can speak in court, can serve in the army, can spend time in the forum, in the baths, participating in public debate. A woman does not vote, holds no public office, does not officially appear in court as a party, except in very rare cases. Her place is the home, religious rites, private conversations. If a man speaks loudly about politics, he is an active citizen. If a woman speaks loudly, influences, intrigues, she is dangerous, too masculine, a rebellion against the natural order. History has its share of prominent Roman women, empresses, rulers, mistresses, wealthy widows, who through money and connections actually steered events. But almost always, chroniclers describe them either as evil witches or as depraved schemers, or as a threat to proper male rule. If a man spins intrigues, it's politics. If a woman does, it's the destruction of morals. This rhetoric didn't die. It quietly lives on today, when women who act tough and openly are so often described with the same words Romans used to brand those who stepped out of their role. Notice the language used to describe the ideal woman and the ideal man. The ideal man, brave, decisive, warlike, intelligent, can even be harsh. That's a plus. Knows the law, manages his household and affairs skillfully. The ideal woman, quiet, entirely devoted to the home, modest, patient, obedient, forgiving of everything, does not stand out. The man is given a set of active qualities that let him change the world. The woman is given a set of passive qualities that force her to endure the world. If a man can't manage, fight, speak, he is despised as weak. If a woman is too active, smart, bold, she is despised as unfeminine, potentially dangerous. The double standard is obvious. The very traits for which a man is praised are forbidden to a woman. A man who earns money, builds a career, loudly asserts himself, a hero. A woman who does the same, a cause for whispers, suspicion, pressure. In Rome, this was official, open, with no attempt to hide behind pretty words. Today we talk more and more about equality, but the shadow of those roles still lies over the expectations society has of people. Another layer of double standards is in punishment. Let's take a few pairs of situations. First pair, adultery. Woman, illegal crime, divorce, trial, loss of part of her property, exile, total destruction of her reputation. Man, if he cheats with slave women, prostitutes, low-status women, practically nothing. If he cheats with another man's wife, he may face that husband's enmity, the courts. But you have to get that far first. Second pair, drunkenness and debauchery. Man, if he overdoes it at a banquet and falls under the table, people will laugh at him. But tomorrow, he's back in the Senate. He may be called a lover of pleasures, but that doesn't erase him from society. Woman, to appear drunk in public, already close to scandal, grounds to say she has lost her face, to behave freely at a banquet, is automatically taken as a sign of promiscuity. Third pair, ending a marriage. Man, can divorce for an entire list of reasons, from I don't like her to she talks too much, keeps his status, and can marry a second, third time. Woman. Formally can also initiate a divorce, especially in the later empire, but always inside a system created by men. After divorce, she's under the magnifying glass. Why didn't she preserve the marriage? What's wrong with her? Probably a bad wife. Fourth pair. Anger, aggression. A man who shouts, hits, makes scenes, has a hot temper, is fiery. A woman who shouts and resists, a hysteric, crazy. In Rome, they didn't yet use the word hysteria, the way later cultures did, but the attitude was the same. Her emotions are proof of her inferiority. His emotions are proof of his strength, or at worst, he went too far, but he's still a man. There is another very dark theme, the way women's bodies were treated in medicine and in punishment. A man being punished most often, lost property, was exiled. In extreme cases, was executed. A woman, for the same moral crimes, could face not only exile and death, but humiliations specifically targeting her as a woman. In later periods, closer to the Christian era, there were practices like public display, cutting off her hair, branding. In pagan Rome, there was already the notion of stripping a woman of her status as a matron, a respectable wife, taking away her clothing, jewelry, and marks of dignity. The long dress, veil, and jewelry were not just items. In Roman culture, they were markers of status. To strip her of them meant saying, "You are no longer worthy of being called a respectable woman." A man could lose his senatorial toga, his rings, symbols of office, but there was not the same moral hysteria around this as there was around a woman losing her honor. His status fell, but his masculinity was not so easily destroyed in society's eyes. Her womanhood, and the respect given to her, could be crushed with a single court decision. Now it's important to ask an honest question. Were there any women in Rome who could do anything at all? Or is it all suffering and nothing else? There were, and it is precisely against their background that the double standards stand out even more. Think of wealthy widows who, after their husbands' deaths, gained huge fortunes and could almost freely dispose of them. Empresses who ruled behind the backs of their husbands and sons. Rulers, mistresses, through whom one could get an office or a pardon. Women of the upper classes surrounded by poets, philosophers, artists. They were exceptions, not the rule. But even about them, writers dripped venom. If a man influenced politics, he was subtle, skilled, talented. If a woman did the same, she was called depraved, greedy, power-hungry, a sorceress, a destroyer of morals. The history of Rome has come down to us mainly through male texts, and in those texts, even a powerful woman is almost always a monster or an anomaly. This is another form of double standard. A woman's life is acceptable as long as it fits a convenient image. As soon as she steps outside it, she is rewritten as the enemy. The most unpleasant point in this whole picture is how familiar it still feels. Look, in Rome, female infidelity carried enormous weight, male infidelity much less. Today, in many cultures, a man's cheating is easier to forgive or explain. A woman often gets branded, even if it's her private story. In Rome, men were allowed to play around. Women were not. Today, a man with lots of experience is often seen as experienced, desirable. A woman with the same experience is easily labeled promiscuous. In Rome, modesty was demanded first and foremost from women. Today, a woman is more often condemned for her clothes, the way she talks, laughs, looks, than a man in the same situation. In Rome, violence against a woman was easily explained by her behavior, not just the man's actions. Today, questions like, "Where were you? Who were you with? Why were you dressed like that?" are often louder than "Who did this? And why did he think he could?" In Rome, the man had a voice, the woman did not. Today, women have formal rights, but the struggle for the right to speak without being branded is still ongoing. Ancient Rome's double standards are not just stories from a textbook. They are the roots of many attitudes that still live under the skin of many societies. Now let's look at another layer, education and access to knowledge. In Rome, boys from good families were taught to read and write, master rhetoric, the art of public speaking, understand law, study philosophy, train for war. This was an investment in the future. From the boy, they were raising a citizen who would govern, defend the city, manage affairs. Girls could also be taught to read and write, especially in wealthy families. But after that, a wall. Rhetoric. Why, if she can't speak in court or in the forum? Law? Why, if she can't hold office? Philosophy? Perhaps, but only for herself, and even then with caution, so she doesn't become too clever and start arguing with men. Military training? Totally off limits. The girl was prepared for one main role, to be a wife and mother. She was taught to run a household, manage slaves, weave, spin, be modest and pleasant. If she showed intelligence, interest in sciences, literature, this might be seen as a cute trait, but not something to be truly developed. The double standard here is simple. The boy is taught to think and act. The girl is taught to obey and serve. And this was not an accident. It was part of a system that from childhood instilled, you are a future master of the world. You are a future helper of the master. Another painful point, the attitude toward motherhood and fatherhood. A woman who does not bear children in Rome is almost defective. Her value as a wife falls. Whispers begin. Barren, cold, the gods are against her. A husband may start looking for another woman to give him heirs. He may divorce her. He may take a lover and have children by her and openly acknowledge them. All of this is socially acceptable. The woman cannot say, I don't want children. I'm afraid of giving birth. I'm exhausted from pregnancies. Her body is not her choice. It is a tool for continuing the family line. If she loses a child, if children die, they console her, but soon expect another pregnancy. If she herself dies in childbirth, it is a tragedy. But in time, the husband remarries, and life goes on. The man does not risk his life in the process, does not endure the pain of childbirth, does not breastfeed, does not have his health worn down by endless pregnancies. Yet he is the one who gets the main reward. Heirs who bear his name, inherit his property, continue his line. The woman is just the vessel. Her contribution is enormous, but in the eyes of society it's seen as natural, her duty, not as something heroic. A father who has many children is virile, strong, blessed by the gods. A mother who has many children has fulfilled her duty. Feel the difference? One, a hero. The other, a function. Now, about money and property. In early Rome, a woman couldn't own property independently at all. Everything she had belonged either to her father or to her husband. Over time, the laws softened. Forms of marriage appeared in which the woman formally remained under her father's authority and did not pass fully under her husband's. This gave her slightly more rights to her dowry and inheritance. Wealthy widows could control huge fortunes. But even then, society looked at them with suspicion. They were accused of greed, debauchery, trying to control men. They were surrounded by those who wanted access to their money. A man with money means power, respect, opportunities. A woman with money means danger, an anomaly, a target for manipulation or mockery. If she spends money on herself, wasteful. If she saves, stingy. If she helps men, a naive fool. If she doesn't, cruel. A man doing the same things is called generous or prudent, a smart investor, a strong head of the household. Again, the double standard works at full strength. The same action, different evaluations depending on gender. Another topic, aging. In Rome, a man often became more respected with age. Gray hair, wrinkles, signs of wisdom, experience, dignity. An old senator, general, philosopher commands respect. A woman with age loses what society values most in her, youth and the ability to bear children. An old woman is no longer attractive, no longer needed as a wife, useless for the continuation of the line. If she is a wealthy widow, they tolerate her for her inheritance. If she is poor, she's almost invisible. In literature and satire, old women are often depicted as evil, quarrelsome, ridiculous, trying to look younger, and that is mocked especially cruelly. An old man courting a young woman, still going strong. An old woman trying to look attractive, pathetic. Again, a double standard. A man's value is not as tightly tied to his body and age. A woman's is almost entirely. Now let's talk about women's friendships, networks, communication. Men could meet in baths, discuss business in the forum, visit one another, drink, argue, make plans together. That was normal. More than that, it was part of political and social life. Women also met, at home, at festivals, in religious rites. But their conversations were seen as gossip, their gatherings as idle chatter, if they met too often or too closely. suspicions arose. It was especially dangerous if women started discussing anything serious: politics, money, rights. That immediately alarmed men. They're plotting something. They want to influence us. This is a threat to order. History records cases where Roman women took to the streets in protest, for example, against unfair taxes. Each time, chroniclers describe this as something shocking, almost improper. Men protesting, civic action. Women protesting, a rebellion against nature. Again, a double standard. Male solidarity, a strength. Female solidarity, a threat. Now let's talk about female vices and male vices. If a man drinks, he loves life, fights, he's fiery, spends money, generous or wasteful. But that's his business. Cheats, well, he's a man. If a woman drinks, depraved, has lost her sense of shame, raises her voice, hysterical, spends money, stupid, doesn't know how to behave, cheats, a criminal, a disgrace to the family. The same vice, different consequences. For the man, indulgence. For the woman, branding. This worked at all levels, from everyday gossip to court decisions. And the worst part, this wasn't a flaw in the system, it was the system. Another point, religion and access to the sacred. Rome had priestesses, vestals, and priestesses of other cults. Formally, this gave women a certain power and respect. But the vestals had to renounce marriage, children, personal life. Their chastity was guarded under the threat of death. They were holy, but at the price of total isolation from a normal female fate. Male priests could be married, could have children, could combine religious duties with political careers. A woman gained power only at the price of surrendering herself as a woman. A man could be priest, husband, father, politician, all at once. Again, a double standard. For a woman, holiness, renunciation of life. For a man, holiness, another status in his collection. Now, domestic violence. A husband who beats his wife in Rome, that's a family matter. As long as he doesn't kill her or cripple her so badly she can't work, society usually doesn't interfere. Moreover, it was believed that a husband had the right to discipline his wife. If she doesn't obey, brings shame, argues, he may use force. A wife who tries to hit her husband back or defend herself is already rebellious, disrespectful, grounds for even harsher punishment. If she runs away from her husband, she may be forcibly brought back. If she complains to relatives, they may support her, or they may say, "Endure, you're his wife now." The law is on the husband's side. Society is on the husband's side. The gods, in many people's eyes, are also on the husband's side. He is head of the household. The woman is left alone. And this isn't an exception. It is the norm. Another chilling double standard, the attitude toward sexuality itself. Male sexuality in Rome is strength, power, a natural desire that must be satisfied. Female sexuality is danger, something to be controlled, something that doesn't belong to her, but to her husband or father. If a man wants sex, that's normal. If a woman openly wants sex, she's promiscuous. If a man enjoys it, it's his right. If a woman enjoys it, it's suspicious, almost shameful. The ideal Roman wife endures, fulfills her duty, bears children, but does not enjoy it. Pleasure is for prostitutes, slave women, low women. A respectable matron should be cold, restrained. The man, however, can and should enjoy himself. It's a sign of his strength. The double standard here is absurd. The same act, sex, is natural and desirable for him, duty and risk for her. Now, revenge and jealousy. If a husband is jealous, he loves her. He is defending what's his. He can forbid his wife to leave the house, spy on her, interrogate her, punish her over suspicions. If a wife is jealous, she's hysterical, doesn't trust him, gets in the way of his life. Her jealousy gives her no rights. She can't forbid him to go to his mistresses. She can't demand fidelity. She can't punish him. At most, suffer silently, or try to influence him through tears, pleading, manipulation. But all of that is unofficial, with no backing from the law. His jealousy, legitimate. Her jealousy, a whim. Another point, how good and bad women were described in texts. A good woman in Roman writings, silent, modest, faithful to her husband until death, doesn't stand out, bears children, dies without leaving scandal behind her. A bad woman, speaks loudly, influences men, has lovers, spends money, intrigues, lives for herself. A good man, brave, intelligent, strong, maybe cruel, that's fine. May cheat, that's forgivable. The main thing is that he serves Rome. A bad man, a coward, a traitor, weak, someone who behaves like a woman, the worst insult. So even in the description of vices, the worst thing that can happen to a man is to be like a woman. The woman is, by default, below. Now, the last, heaviest layer. Everything we've talked about isn't just ancient oddities. It's the foundation upon which Rome's laws, culture, and religion were built. And Rome was not an isolated civilization. Rome conquered half the known world. Roman law became the basis for Europe's legal systems. Roman culture influenced Christianity, which then spread across the world. Roman texts were studied, copied, quoted for centuries, and along with that legacy, the double standards were passed on. The woman is beneath the man. Her body is not her own. Her voice is not equal to his. Her mistakes are worse than his. This didn't die with Rome. It mutated, adapted, wove itself into new cultures. Christianity added its own layers of control over the female body. The Middle Ages reinforced the ideas of honor and modesty. The modern age formally granted rights, but old attitudes remained in people's heads. And today, in the 21st century, we still judge women more harshly than men for the same actions. Demand modesty from them and strength from men. Excuse male violence as nature, but call women self-defense hysteria. Value men for their minds and deeds, and women for appearance and obedience. Not everywhere, not always, but very, very often. And the roots of this lie, among other places, in ancient Rome. Let's sum up quickly. Ancient Rome's double standards are not a random set of odd customs. They are a system in which, for adultery, a woman was punished by law, and a man, at most, by morals. For the very same traits of activity, intelligence, and strength, a man was praised and a woman branded. For the same act, one person got freedom, the other, punishment. The man was the subject, the woman the object. His body, his right. Her body, a resource for the family and the state. Rome created laws that enshrined this. Rome created a culture that celebrated it. Rome created texts that justified it. And none of this stayed in the past. Its echo still sounds today in how we judge, how we speak, how we think about men and women. If you've stayed to the end, ask yourself one question. How much of what you consider normal in relationships, roles, and expectations is actually just an echo of Roman double standards? Write in the comments which moment in this video shocked you the most, and if you want a follow-up, for example, a separate video on how slave women lived in Rome, or what the life of a Roman prostitute looked like, or what happened to women in lands conquered by Rome, support this video and stay on the channel.